This video is a note-for-note breakdown of the guitar solo that enters at 14 seconds during the intro of the song. The supporting rhythm guitar and bass parts will be expanded upon in the second video of this two-part analysis. As a bonus, a brief walkthrough of the guitar riff that begins the song will be done at the end of the video. The tuning used in this video and on the record is standard E drop D in 440 wavelength calibration. The solo during the beginning of the song is going to be 8 measures long. We're going to start out by placing the third finger on the G string at the 7th fret. What we're going to be doing with this note is bending it up a full step and a half in pitch. What I mean by that is that when we bend the note, we're going to bend it so it sounds like the note on the same string at the 10th fret. Here's what the note will sound like when we bend it. Here's what it will sound like on the 10th fret. You can hear the similarity. Also notice that my middle finger is on that same string at the 6th fret. What I'm doing here is a trick that I learned a long time ago. I'm using 2 fingers to bend that string to make it physically easier to do. On the very first beat of the first measure, this guitar part is going to be at a quarter note rest. We'll enter on 2 by picking this note downwards. We're going to bend it up and let it sustain out as a quarter note. After that, we're going to go back to the original position of the note. Okay, when we release the bend, we're not going to let it sustain out as we go back to that note. We're just going to go back to it. We'll pick that down on 3 and let that ring out as another quarter note. On 4, we're going to go to the 5th fret on that same string with the first finger. We'll pick that down and let that ring out as an 8th note. We're going to finish up the first measure by going back to the 7th fret on that same string with the 3rd finger. We'll pick that upwards. That's the final 8th note of the measure. With the 4-count lead in, this is what that first measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we start the second measure. We're going to pick this note down on 1 and bend it. It'll sustain out as another quarter note. After that, we're going to go back to the original position of the note, just like the last measure. We're going to pick it down on 2 and let that ring out as another quarter note. On 3, we're going to go to the 5th fret on that same string with the first finger. We're going to pick that down and let that ring out as an 8th note. On the and beat directly after 3, we go back to the 7th fret on that same string. With the 3rd finger, we pick it up. That's an 8th note. We'll finish up the second measure by picking this note downwards and bending it up. Okay, and this is going to ring out into the next measure. With the 4-count lead in, I'm going to play that second measure just to make sure you understand what's going on there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, now what I'm going to do is combine the first 2 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're at the point where we start the third measure. This note should still be bent up and sustaining out from the end of the second measure. What we're going to do is take the last quarter of the second measure and tie it to the first quarter of the third measure. This actually makes it a half note. What we're going to do after 1 is we're going to go back to the original position of the note. And what we'll do is on 2 we're going to pick it down and bend it back up again. Okay? And actually from this point forward, the rest of the third measure is going to be played exactly the way the first measure was played. So what I'm going to do is give you a 4-count lead in and attempt to play the first 3 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and... Okay, from this point we start the 4th measure. what we're going to do is shift down to the 2nd fret on that same string with the 1st finger. We're going to play 6/8 notes counted 1 and 2 and 3 and. Pick down, up, down, up, down, up. Just like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay? We'll finish up that 1st measure by placing the middle finger on the D string at the 3rd fret. We'll pick this down and let it ring out as a quarter note to complete the 4th measure. With a 4-count lead in, this is what the 4th measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, with a 4-count lead in, let's do the first 4 measures combined in sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Now that you know the first 4 measures of the solo, the last 4 measures are going to be really easy. Measures 5 through 7 are exact repeats of measures 1 through 3. The only thing that's going to be done differently is that to play the last 8th note in measure 7, we're physically going to shift the position of the hand by taking that 1st finger and going to the 7th fret on that same string to get to that same note on the 7th fret. Okay, what we're doing here is we're changing our hand position to get in position to finish up the solo in the 8th measure. Here's what we're doing in the 3rd measure. Here's what we're doing in the 7th measure. It's the same thing, but now we're in position to finish the solo. We're going to take the pinky and place it on the B string at the 10th fret. We're going to pick this down on 1 and let that ring out as an 8th note. On the and beat directly after 1, we're going to go to the 8th fret on that same string with the middle finger. We'll pick this up and let that ring out as an 8th note. Actually, this measure is going to have exactly the same feel as the 4th measure. We're just using different notes. So what we'll do for the next 4 8th notes is we're going to basically toggle back and forth between these 2 notes on the 10th and 8th fret. I'm just going to do that, just like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, notice the picking motion. Down, up, down, up, down. Up. Just like that. Now on that last upbeat after 3, I'm going to let that note ring out. And to finish up the 8th measure, I'm just going to bend that note up on 4. It's not going to be picked again. The bending note is just going to be sound by the bend as the note sustains out. So with the 4-count lead in, this is what that last measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. With the 4-count lead in, let's do the last 4 measures of the solo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now that you know the entire solo, let's play all 8 measures right from the start. I'm not going to count it aloud as I play it, but I'll still give you the 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Another lead part will enter at 1 minute and 11 seconds during the bridge of the song. It will be played exactly the same way as measures 5 through 8 in the last half of the intro solo. The supporting rhythm guitar and bass parts will also be exactly the same as what was done in that same stretch of music. In order to play the really cool guitar riff that starts out this song, you're going to have to tune your low open E string down a full step to the pitch of D. If done correctly, you place a finger on the low open E string at the 7th fret and pick this note, followed by the open A string, and the two notes should sound the same, just like this. The low open E string is now the low open D string. If we play the low open D string along with the open A and the higher pitched open D string, these three strings will create an open D5 power chord just like this. Notice that when I play that D5 power chord, I'm laying my pinky on the higher pitched 3 strings that we're not using just to dampen them out so none of those notes ring out accidentally. We're going to start out by playing a 2 measure long pattern that's going to repeat itself 1 time. The first measure is going to be straight 8th notes counted 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and pick down up, down up, down up, down up. The first 2 8th notes are going to be the open D5 power chord just like this. 1 and on 2 we go to the 5th fret on the A string with that 3rd finger on the downward picking motion. The and beat after 2, the middle finger goes to the 4th fret on that same string. We pick this up. On 3, the 1st finger goes to the 3rd fret on that same string. This is a downward picking motion. On the and beat after 3, we pick the open A string up. On 4, we go back to the 3rd fret on that same string and pick that down. To finish up the first measure, we go back to the 5th fret on that same string with the 3rd finger and pick that up. With a 4 count lead in, here's what that first measure will sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now we start the second measure. This is going to be an exact repeat of the first measure with the exception of the last quarter of it. Instead of doing this on 4 and, we're going to shift up to the 2nd fret with that 1st finger on the open D string, the higher pitched D string that is. We're going to pick this down on 4 and hammer on with the middle finger to the 3rd fret. We'll pull off back to the 2nd fret, then hammer on to the 3rd fret again. This is a technique called a trill. You basically pick the note 1 time and do a series of hammer-ons and pull-offs. In this case, 16th notes. We'll count it 4 and just like this. 4 and. So with the 4 count lead in, here's what those 2 measures are going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Let's play the first 4 measures 1 time. I'm not going to count it aloud as I play it. I'm just going to give you the 4 count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're halfway there. The next 4 measures are going to be really easy. All we're going to do is repeat what we did in the very first measure 4 more times. This is the point where the drums start to accent. Okay, with the 4 count lead in, let's run through the entire beginning right up into the point where the solo starts. 1, 2, 3, 4.